Hey everyone, it's Swank Ivy again with another Letters to an Asexual. This is 89? 89. So today I'm going to read you a blast from the past. I think these comments were made 8 or 9 years ago in one of my first videos. And while this person was not incredibly unreasonable, they did offer a perspective that is problematic. And so I'm going to share the conversation with you and then follow up by reading you a post that I made on Tumblr some time ago that I also reference in my conversation with this person. And again, this is not one of the incredibly ignorant conversations that we've had on this channel. The person was at least polite and seemed somewhat reasonable. However, the idea is still one that comes from an assumption that doesn't bode well, I guess, for asexual people being understood and not written off as closed-minded. And the basic subject of this conversation is the idea that asexual people need to have tried sex before they should be allowed to use the word asexual. So let's bring up the conversation. Have you tried this limited edition Starlight Coke yet? If anybody has opinions on it, feel free to weigh in. I personally like it. One of my friends does not. So let's see if this entire message loaded. Yes, okay. We're good. So here's the person's first message offered in the comments of one of my YouTube videos, and they said, "Hello, I like your book reviews, and I think you're very intelligent. However, while I respect your choice, I can't agree with declaring oneself asexual when you're still a virgin. I feel that making such a choice shouldn't be made without checking what's on the other side of the fence. And I encourage anyone who thinks they might be asexual to first give sex a good try. Often, I've discovered I really enjoyed activities that didn't interest me at all until I gave them a reluctant try. Cheers." My response: you don't have to agree with other people's identities. I guess you can deny what they're feeling all you like. Asexuality doesn't mean doesn't like sex and is too close-minded to try, though. It means not experiencing sexual attraction, not a choice. Those of us who try sex and dislike it just get repeatedly told we did it wrong or with the wrong person, so trying it doesn't prove anything since you can't prove a negative. You should trust people to know who they're attracted to, though. The person replied with this: I'm not denying or disagreeing with anything, merely commenting. I'm just a sort of person who feels potentially beautiful, non-destructive activities should never be discarded out of hand, but should rather be given the benefit of the doubt. Also, I'll argue that a lot of the time people don't truly know what they want. They almost always think, or are even 100% certain they do. But quite often they turn out to be wrong, especially when these matters are concerned. For example, a buddy's girlfriend is an ex-lesbian. She had never been interested in men at all, and yet with him it all changed. Whatever the reasons behind it, he sparked an attraction and desire in her that she had never experienced before, just because, for whatever reason, she gave it a shot. They were friends for a time before they hooked up. Not saying you're like that, but from my experience, what people think they want and what they truly want are two wholly different things. My response: yes, sexuality is fluid for some. Yes, people can change, but people don't know what they want does not mean a third party should come in and tell them what they ought to pursue. You're holding asexual people to a double standard. Straight people don't have to have unwanted gay sex with someone they're not attracted to so they can be sure they're straight. And just one encounter would prove nothing. It wouldn't be the beautiful experience you think it would be for everyone. People need to be trusted to be the authority on their own experiences. The problem with, but it could be beautiful, is that other people don't get to decide what experiences others should invite into their lives. And they do not get to tell asexual people that they owe anyone, including themselves, the experience of trying it, when that is often too tall an order. No one is routinely expected to seek out sex with people we're not at all attracted to, except us. Interjecting us as in queer people in general. With your buddy's ex-lesbian girlfriend, the way you're describing it is that she developed an attraction to a man, even though she thought it wasn't possible. Good for her for being true to whatever she felt. But considering lesbianism and asexuality are not decisions anyone here has made, we should be trusted to continue to follow what our attractions tell us to do. If that changes for an asexual person, fine. But unwanted sex doesn't turn a person sexual, like vampirism. If you'd like to understand why expecting asexual people to have sex they don't want is not reasonable, and you'd like to read about my perspective in more detail, please do a search for the phrase, the asexual double standard. You'll find a more reflective essay on this subject on my Tumblr blog. Just so you know, though, we hear, but you need to make sure by having sex all the time, even though having sex does not prove anything. Where do the demands for proof stop? Their response? I'm not demanding proof for anything. I'm just stating my opinion on a topic I find interesting. I apologize if people are spamming you with this. I must admit, I don't personally know any out-of-the-closet asexual people, and don't know what you have to deal with on a daily basis. Sorry if I came off as thick-headed. I replied, no, you're not demanding, but you are saying that asexual people should try sex before they should get to call themselves asexual. They are not stating, I do not like sex, without trying it if they use the label asexual. People who suggest it's like closed-mindedly not trying a new kind of food or something do not understand that asexuality is the label you use if you are not attracted to anyone. That's all it is. You seem reasonable, so I thought you'd appreciate reading my perspective. The person's response? What I'm trying to say is, I wasn't interested in skiing. It was boring to watch on TV. It didn't seem like fun at all. However, friends kept saying it was awesome. So I bit the bullet and gave it a try. It turned out it really was awesome, and that I really did enjoy it a lot. Today, I make sure I go skiing whenever I can. What I'm trying to say is that, quite often, giving something you aren't interested in a decent try can have a huge payoff. If anything, you'll know for sure you don't like it. My response. Sexual attraction is not like trying a sport. It is not like trying a food. Asexuality is not the same thing as not liking sex. It is not the act of sex that these people are saying they don't like. Some asexual people like sex. If you don't think straight people should be repeatedly encouraged to have gay sex to make sure they're straight, don't say this to asexuals. Asexuality is not the label people use to mean I don't like sex. It means I'm not sexually attracted to people. Their response. Well, yeah, I guess I do believe people should try eating beef before they decide they don't like beef. Maybe this really isn't comparable to sexuality. I can't say I have a concrete opinion on that, so I'll have to think on it. I will definitely read your blog, as I find this stuff pretty interesting and your posts insightful. You'll definitely be getting my likes. Cheers! And my reply. It's a false comparison to say a sexual orientation is the same as not trying beef. Orientation is an expression of what you're attracted to. That is all. Orientation is frequently involved when deciding whether someone wants to invite sexual experiences, but you, from outside the equation, should not tell other people what sexual experiences they should be willing to tolerate in the interest of maybe they'll enjoy it. I can promise you that the repeated, consistent, relentless push from society telling asexual people they are broken or missing out is not worth the possible gain. Might a person like sex, despite thinking they won't? Sure. Same with a straight person, maybe liking gay sex. But people don't want to leave us alone until we find something sexual we like. And people have different standards of what is enough experimentation. We should get to draw that line of what we'll try, not everyone else. I would like to say that I do prefer to stay away from comparisons to gay sex versus straight sex, but it works really well sometimes if someone is straight and they can't imagine somebody else not needing to try a bunch of stuff to make sure that they're not what every straight person in these conversations seems to think is the normal/natural way to be. They seem to find it really difficult to imagine that we wouldn't want to keep trying as hard as we can to be like them, while they've never imagined trying to be like us and that it might actually be preferable. They just keep thinking that we should always be on the lookout for a way to change ourselves, and that's kind of the problem there. And that's why I do think, even though I don't like to bring up you're not expected to try gay sex, because the idea behind it is, of course, you'll find that disgusting, and I don't like to compare gay sex to something that is expected to be found disgusting, if you know what I mean. It's kind of complicated, but sometimes it does work for straight people to think of it like that if they're straight and never been bi-curious, and it just sometimes works for people who have never thought outside of their own mindset. And you'll see that that comparison comes up in my post that I'm going to read to you next, which is referenced and is titled The Asexual Double Standard. So I will read you that. It was originally posted on my Tumblr, I believe, in 2012. The Asexual Double Standard. Asexual people are regularly told we should be indifferent enough to just try it. Meaning sex, of course, because if we ID as asexual, we're usually assumed to be virgins. Asexual people who feel they are too repulsed to just try it are assigned a fear of sex, and dismissed outright by people who don't think trying sex is a big deal. Asexual people who have just tried it and didn't like it, or, as is sometimes the case, found it horrible, are dismissed outright by people who think we did it wrong, did it with the wrong person/wrong gender, or ruined the experience for ourselves by expecting to hate it. Basically, this suggests that the only authentic way of experiencing sex is to engage in it without prejudice, enjoy it, and stop calling oneself asexual. Ignoring, of course, that some asexual people can enjoy sex and still feel that their orientation is asexual. But let's look at indifferent and repulsion reactions. Here is something to keep in mind before you slap an asexual person who reacts this way with judgment on why their failure to love sex is pathological. Imagine, if you will, that you are a straight person, but everyone has told you your whole life that you should like the same gender in your bed. You imagined as a child that you would fulfill this expectation by developing those feelings, but no, you feel straight, even after you're finished becoming an adult. So you feel something is wrong with you, and that you should desire gay sex, and that message, plus a drive to connect with others emotionally or romantically, leads you to seeking out a consummate homosexual relationship. You do it, you don't like it, you either felt actively sickened by the experience, or you at least didn't enjoy it, the way everyone says you should have. Either the experience itself or the experience of not connecting in this supposedly fundamental way leaves you out in the cold, wondering what's wrong with you, why this doesn't work for you, why it wasn't the transformative experience everyone else talks up, why you can't feel what everyone else feels. That's pretty scary, isn't it? To have everyone look down their nose at you when you say the sex you had was either something you could take or leave, or something you would really prefer to leave, thank you. I think people who say we should be open to pursuing sex, no matter how we think we'll feel about it, don't understand why just trying sex is too tall an order for some of us. There are plenty of people out there who don't have to be sexually attracted to their partners in order to have sex with them, and some asexual people are in that camp. But it's not normally considered unreasonable to be unable to stomach sex with a person who's not attractive to you, unless you're asexual. Then you're expected to acknowledge that your feelings are wrong or weird. and you're led to believe that jump-starting your active sexual attraction experiences is possible through pushing yourself into sex. But since last time I checked, most heterosexual people don't believe they can be turned gay by having gay sex they aren't interested in, I'm pretty sure we'd all be on the same page if we could agree that sexual attraction is not like vampirism, some kind of desire that's absent completely until it's bestowed upon you by a person who bites you. Most folks agree that a person can tell who they are attracted to, and that they are well within their rights pursuing only those partners, again, unless they're asexual. It's a double standard for asexuals. We aren't trusted to be the authority on our feelings, and we're told that this is so because sex is good. So there must be some form of it we will desire or enjoy. But asexuality, the state of not being sexually attracted to anyone, isn't a condition that limits our capacity to understand ourselves and authentically choose what intimate experiences we want to have. So before you tell an asexual person that they should be indifferent enough to give sex a try, or that they should never have a revulsion response to having sex, think about how you'd feel if you were told the same thing about how you're supposed to feel about having sex with partners you're not attracted to. And think about how frustrating, demeaning, isolating, and scary it would be to live in a world where that message is the master narrative, by which you're expected to define your most cherished relationships. Think about that, and then don't say it. Anyway, I turned that relationship idea around from the status quo, suggesting that straight people imagine that the world is gay and wants you to be gay, because most of us who are queer can imagine that very well. Like, anybody who is only attracted to the same sex, for instance, they've probably all been through that, at least from some of the people in their lives. Most of them can definitely imagine growing up in a world where they were expected to be straight and then they turn out not to be straight, and a lot of them have disastrous straight experiences. So it really only works if I kind of turn it around from the status quo, which is, again, something that I feel like it's a little bit of a problematic analogy, because I really don't want people to associate a gay relationship or same-sex sexual experiences with disgust. But like I said, some straight people have just never had that thought at all. They've never imagined it at all, and some of them probably do have a lot of disgust regarding having same-sex relationships, and you know, that's unfortunate that they can know that that is sometimes a thing and still think that it's reasonable to say we should put ourselves through it, those of us who are same-sex attracted or those of us who are not attracted to anyone, and that we should put ourselves through presumably heterosexual relationships that we don't feel happy in and that we don't feel comfortable having sexual relationships in. You know, those of us to whom that applies anyway. I would also like to say as an addendum that I mentioned several times in that essay that I feel that asexual people are regarded with a double standard, and that no one but asexual people is expected to have sex that they don't desire, but obviously that is not a thing for gay people also, just that they are also expected to have straight sex by a lot of mainstream society. It's just that there are also lots of people who understand why that's not reasonable, and I think it's less so for us. I think that for those of us who would prefer to abstain completely, people just can't imagine that we wouldn't want to try something, and that's kind of where it gets a little bit hairy, I guess. But anyway, yeah, I think that essay is 10 years old and it's oversimplified, so I just want to call out the problems that I've seen in it since I wrote that kind of oversimplification of the issue, so that nobody gets the idea that I don't understand that queer people do face this, even if they're not asexual people, that lots of queer people who have been expected to be straight have been through this as well. So I hear those stories all the time. Anyway, long story short, I have continued to hear this from people who believe that somehow the world would be satisfied if we just have sex once. Just once, and then we'd know for sure that we don't like it. And they don't seem to get that those of us who have done that, we just get told it wasn't enough and we haven't experimented enough. Ultimately, unless we find something that we do like, it's never enough for some people, so it really needs to be self-led. It needs to be self-initiated. And the whole idea that somebody could compare it to, well, I didn't think I would like skiing, and then I did it, and I do like skiing. It's really not a good comparison at all. Especially since, like I kept saying to that person, asexuality isn't a declaration that you don't like or will not have sex. It's not the same thing. It doesn't mean you haven't experienced sex. It doesn't mean that you don't like sex. It might be something that you also feel. I certainly feel that way, that I'm not interested in sex and not willing to have sex. But that's not everyone. That's not what the word necessarily means. So, it is unfortunate that those standards are still something that we bump up against, even with all of the progress that we've made in the last couple of decades with asexual awareness. There are still people who see us as simply inexperienced and maybe sex-fearing or closed-minded, and they really can't imagine that these intimate experiences aren't analogous to trying a new food. It's very strange. And then, of course, again, it gets tangled up in the terminology, where maybe somebody who says that they've never been skiing certainly can't say, I don't like skiing, but they can explain to you maybe why they have an aversion to it. Maybe they really, really hate being cold. Maybe they have an ankle injury and they're afraid that this will exacerbate it. Maybe they're really afraid of heights and they don't want to go on the ski lift. There are associations with that make it very legitimate for why someone might say, I don't want to try skiing. There are all these other complicating factors that make that something I find to be dangerous or threatening, or at the very least uninteresting or not worth the risks. So the person saying, I have reasons that I don't want to go skiing, is not the same as the person saying, I don't like skiing. Yeah, I've never done it, but I don't like it. No. So being a person that's not willing to have sex, I can say the reasons that I feel that it would not be pleasurable. I can say that I feel repulsed by intimate contact with people. You know, there are aspects of physical closeness that I have been willing to tolerate, that I was told by many people, oh, this is part of what feels good. This is commonly associated with intimate experiences that lead to sex. None of them were what other people said they would be, so I have plenty of reason to believe that I'm right about how I would feel about going further with that. You know, like, it's kind of like if I don't like something that's a little bit spicy, I'm not going to suddenly change my mind if you hand me a ghost pepper. So, anyway, what's really important, though, is that everybody who's pushing asexual people learn to respect the agency of the people involved. They really should not be that invested in whether we have earned the right to call ourselves what we call ourselves. And anyway, those are some good examinations, I think, of that position. So hopefully you're not facing this kind of question, but if you ever do, maybe these perspectives can help. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.